I didn't realize I was destroying my own peace until it was almost too late. At 83, you would think I had everything figured out. A long life behind me, a family, a career, stories to tell. But there was one thing, one invisible weight, that followed me everywhere, and I carried it for decades. It didn't look dangerous. In fact, most people would call it normal, responsible even. But slowly, quietly, it stole something from me. My calm, my joy, my ability to just sit still and feel okay. But here's what I didn't realize. The thing I thought was protecting me was actually the very thing keeping me restless, anxious, and never satisfied. And that's where everything changed. Because one day, something small happened. Nothing dramatic. No big tragedy. Just a quiet moment that forced me to see the truth I had been avoiding my entire life. And when I finally saw it, I had to let it go. Even at 83. Especially at 83. I spent most of my life believing one simple idea. I'll be happy when everything is under control. It started when I was young. I grew up in a modest home. My father worked long hours, my mother worried constantly. Money was tight and uncertainty was everywhere, so I made a silent promise to myself. One day, I would create a life where nothing could go wrong, so I worked hard. I got a stable job in my late 20s, not glamorous but reliable, a steady paycheck, predictable routine. I married a kind woman who believed in me, and together we built a life that looked safe. We had 2 children, a small house, bills paid on time, savings in the bank. From the outside, everything was fine. But inside, I was always thinking, always planning, always worrying about what might happen next. What if I lose my job? What if the market crashes? What if something happens to my family? So I prepared for everything. I double-checked everything. I saved more than I needed. I avoided risks. I stayed in situations longer than I should have, just because they felt secure. But here's what I didn't realize. That constant need for control was slowly turning into fear. I wasn't living my life. I was managing it. Even during happy moments, I couldn't fully relax. At family dinners, I was thinking about finances. On vacations, I was calculating costs. When my children laughed, I smiled. But part of me was already worrying about their future. And I told myself, I'll relax later. I'll enjoy life once everything is perfect. But that moment never came. Years passed. My children grew up. My career remained stable. I did everything right, and yet something felt missing. A quiet emptiness I couldn't explain. The turning point didn't come from a crisis. It came from silence. I was sitting alone in my living room one evening. My wife had passed a few years earlier. The house, once full of noise and movement, now felt still. Too still. And for the first time in decades, there was nothing to manage, no urgent problem, no immediate responsibility, just me and my thoughts. And that's when it hit me. I had spent my entire life preparing for a future that had already passed. But here's what I didn't realize. I had sacrificed the present for a version of safety that never truly existed. I remembered a moment from years ago. My daughter had invited me to a weekend trip. She wanted me to relax, spend time, just be there. And I said no. I told her I was too busy, too many things to handle. But the truth? I was afraid of stepping away from control. Another memory came back. My wife once asked me, "Can you just sit with me tonight? No plans, no thinking, just sit." And I couldn't. Even then my mind was racing, always somewhere else. And that's where everything changed. Because sitting in that quiet room, I realized something painful. I had built a life that looked secure, but felt empty. I had avoided risks, but also avoided joy. I had protected myself from uncertainty, but also blocked out peace. And suddenly, all those years of control didn't feel like strength anymore. They felt like a prison I had built myself. But here's the hardest part. No one forced me to live this way. I chose it. And that realization broke me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, heavy truth settling in. Tears came, but not from sadness alone, from understanding, from seeing clearly, for the first time. That night, I made a decision. A simple one. But it changed everything. I decided to let go. Not of my responsibilities, not of my memories, but of control. Because I finally understood something I wish I had known much earlier. I was chasing something that doesn't exist. Perfect control, perfect safety, perfect certainty. It's an illusion. Life doesn't work that way, and trying to force it only creates tension, not peace. But here's what I didn't realize for so long. Peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from accepting that you can't. So I started small. I stopped overthinking every little decision. I allowed myself to sit without needing to fix something. I let conversations flow without planning every word. At first it felt uncomfortable, almost wrong, like I was doing something irresponsible, but slowly, something shifted. I began to feel lighter, not because life became easier, but because I stopped fighting it. And for the first time in decades, I felt calm, real calm. If you're listening to this, I want to ask you something. What are you holding on to right now? That's quietly stealing your peace? Is it control? Is it fear? Is it the need for everything to go exactly as planned? Because here's the truth. There will always be something uncertain. There will always be something you can't control. But that doesn't mean you can't have peace. Peace is not something you earn at the end of life. It's something you allow, right now. So maybe, just for today, let one thing go, just one, and notice what happens. Because I spent over 80 years learning this lesson the hard way. You don't have to. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. The moment you stop trying to control everything is the moment you finally start living.